Good, good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and welcome you all to this Inception meeting of solving sustainable challenges at the Food-Climate-Biodiversity Nexus partnership. We would be starting right away with the opening welcome remarks, which will be given by Professor Dennis Sahito. Professor Dennis Sahito is the director of the Center of Coastal Management, a World Bank Africa Center of Excellence in Coastal Resilience at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. He is also representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast at this Inception meeting. So, Professor Dennis Sahito, I yield the floor to you.
Right. So good morning, everyone, to Nigeria, to Ghana, to UBC in Canada, and all those joining us from across the world. It gives me a big honor and pleasure to welcome you to this very important ceremony, which seeks to bring us all together to address this issue. But first, permit me to acknowledge Professor Rashid Sumaila and colleagues from around Nigeria, Temi, Shehu, and all others who are here, and of course also the Ghana team members. In the interest of time, just to highlight colleagues who are also joining us, including students. You know, this project, Solving the Sustainability Challenges at the Food-Climate-Biodiversity Nexus, is a partnership project which is being led by UBC, University of British Columbia, the project director, Professor William Chen, with Professor Rashid Sumaila as the co-director, are working with so many co-investigators from across the world and collaborators to really help to address the heightened global food issues, particularly to do with seafood and marine ecosystem conservation. We all do know that there is a heightened global food demand that has exerted a lot of pressure on ecosystems and biodiversity, threatening the Earth's capacity to support human well-being. In the midst of all this is also the challenge of climate change, which is also impacting our food production systems, not just in West Africa, but globally. You know, and the problems also relate to biodiversity impacts on land and also in the ocean. Our activities, in terms of human activities, are also driving biodiversity loss that are contributing substantially to climate change and also reducing the capacity to produce nutritious wild foods. So in the context of this project, there are very high-level questions which we are seeking to interrogate within the food, climate, and biodiversity, at the Food, Climate, Biodiversity Nexus. Some of the questions relate to consequences of farming and aquaculture development on biodiversity and climate. We would also be exploring how the climate adaptation for fisheries and agriculture affect food production, biodiversity, and societal well-being, and many other high-level questions. But within the context of West Africa, the scope really focuses on IUU and pollution. And I'm sure that in the context of, as we progress on the agenda, we will be touching more specifically on the issues. I want to use this opportunity to welcome you all, faculty, students, researchers, and policymakers who have made time of your very busy schedule to be here with us this morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Sahito. Thank you for that welcome remarks. We would move on to the introduction of the Solving the FCB lead institution, and that will be taken by Professor Shehu Kintola. Professor Shehu, please, over to you.
Yeah, well, just like Dennis has said, the goal is for those of us in West Africa is to deepen our understanding on the major threats to the fisheries, the food diversity, and of course, the health of individuals in the country. As you may know, the Gulf of Guinea is very crucial, very important in terms of the ecosystem, one of the richest ecosystems in the world. However, it's faced with the challenge of illegal fishing, whereby fishers, people, industry come in and then steal the wealth of the people. So it is important for us to understand the impact of these on the economy of the region, particularly with a focus on Nigeria and Ghana being the leading in terms of fish production. So this will be the focus on our team. We will be looking at the impact of transshipment. One of the ways by which IUU has also gotten its food in West Africa is that the transshipment using the small-scale fishers has also been very prominent in the way these illegal activities are occurring. So within the time frame of the project, we tend to look at how has the IUU impacted on the economy in terms of trying to quantify impact. And then we'll also be looking at creating the necessary scenarios and models that will be able to allow decision makers to tackle this problem head front, so as to be able to free allow the resources of the region to be utilized, and then ensure that there will be fish in abundance in the country. The economy of the region will also prosper if we have the right decision to tackle the problem of IUU. So this is just part of what we'll be focusing on. Also, in the context of the work, we'll also be looking at how all the mix, the element in the project works together to provide a greater understanding of the connections between what we have and the food, which is in this case, the fish, and the impact of climate, and then vis-a-vis how much of the biodiversity are being lost. So I want to stop here to let us just set our minds to what would be a great interactive session on the program. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Shehu Akitola. I'd like to also invite Professor Berchi Asedu just in a minute. Perhaps you want to also add something to what Professor Shehu Akitola has said.
Yeah, hello, good morning to everyone. So as my senior colleagues have said, okay, so this is a project and then by the University of British Columbia, leading with the West Africa involvement, so Ghana, Nigeria. So basically, in terms of the IUU, we are looking at the economic, social, and then the ecological impacts of IUU, and also to get the stakeholders buy-in so that we can aggressively tackle IUU, because it has so many impacts on our food security, on our livelihood, as well as on generating income for the fisheries. And through the project, we will be able to build database of materials on IUU, biodiversity, pollution, and climate change. One good aspect of the project is capacity building. So we are training a lot of graduates so that we'll have more human resources that can help us to tackle this IUU in our sub-region. So it's been good, and we look forward. Everybody, is have to be part of it, because usually the fisheries problem is complicated. Has come from so many angles, and we need a lot of all of us to work together so that we can tackle IUU in this Gulf of Guinea. So that's what I have to add for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Seidu. Thank you for your remarks also. So we want to move on to the next agenda item on the agenda, which is opening remarks by principal officers from each of the West African case study teams. And we'll be starting off with the University of Lagos. We have here with us Professor Elijah Oyeyemi, who is the Dean of the Faculty of Science and representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos. Professor Oyeyemi, over to you, sir.
Good morning, sirs. Good morning, ma. Yeah, as been introduced by the convener, I'm actually representing the Vice Chancellor, who is unaffordably absent for this great event due to a number of pressing official assignments. So I will give his remark as directed by the Vice Chancellor, Professor Folasade Ogunsola, FAS. It gives me a great honor to deliver the opening remark as the Vice Chancellor of one of the 5 institutions which are co-leading the Solving-FCB project in West Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana in particular. I welcome you to the Inception meeting of the Solving Sustainability Challenges at the Food-Climate-Biodiversity Nexus Partnership. This is a social sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada funded 6-year partnership from 2022 to 2028 across the 5 continents of the world. The West Africa case study of the Solving-FCB partnership hypothesizes that resolving illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and plastic pollution in the Gulf of Guinea with a focus on Nigeria and Ghana will note that have triple benefits for addressing the nexus of FCB challenges. University of Lagos, where Dr. Temitope Sugbamu is the lead, is very happy to be part of this partnership with the transformative and sustainable outcome emphasized for our coastal and marine ecosystem. The Vice Chancellor is promising that the University of Lagos will continue to support the achievement of the project objectives. And this is particularly one of the areas where the university is very interested. There are quite a number of projects that are actually along this particular direction, and we are very happy to be partner with this particular project. We thank you for the time that you have taken for this particular project, and it is my wish that at the end of the program, all the itemized objectives shall be achieved. I thank you all, and I wish all of you happy deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, representative of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Elijah Oyeyemi. We move on to the University of Cape Coast, where Professor Dennis Aheto is the representative of the Vice Chancellor. Professor Dennis Aheto, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Johnson Bompong, I wish to express the university's commitment to this project. Unfortunately, he's unable to be here today due to other equally important assignments which he has to chair. So the University of Cape Coast is a university of choice in West Africa. And as a matter of fact, being located along the coast makes it prime in terms of its dedication to research and capacity building when it comes to training on fisheries and coastal management, ocean governance, and related topics. The university is proud to host the Regional Center of Excellence in Coastal Resilience that is in the forefront of providing long-term capacity building for Africa in terms of training on issues to do with blue economy, governance, social resilience, pertaining to the use of marine resources. And so on behalf of the entire University Council, the Vice Chancellor extends his profound gratitude for the opportunity to be part of this global initiative to promote capacity building, research, and extension policy-related impacts on the fisheries sector, not just for Ghana, but also for the sub-region, of which Nigeria is a key part. So we thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you once again, Professor Dennis Aheto. We move on straight to the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Ghana, where we have Dr. Samuel Kumi, the Research and Development Coordinator, School of Natural Resources, is representing the Vice Chancellor. Dr. Samuel Kumi, over to you.
Okay. Good morning, and I'm representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Energy and Natural Resources. The University of Energy and Natural Resources is a university of great research interest in terms of natural resources. So looking at investigation or a project relating to these food, climate, and biodiversity nexus is a great interest to the university, and particularly to the School of Natural Resources. And we have a great interest, and almost the faculty members are of great interest in looking at these subjects. And so we give our full support, and we will do our best also to train students who will be able to contribute to these great projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel Kobi. Okay, Dr. Temi Tokwe Shugwamu, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Just before we have Williams and Rashid come up to talk about the global Solving-FCB project, and we just want to quickly recognize some of the partners that are here. As you may know, if you have visited the Solving-FCB website, this project is a transdisciplinary partnership project. And so we have some of our partners across government regulatory agencies and policymaking institutions who are right here joining us. We also have some NGOs represented. We will not do the honors of calling names one by one, just to show and acknowledge that we know that you are here and we appreciate your partnership and collaboration in this project. And we may have time to speak more about that and to thank you for that in the closing remarks. I'll yield the floor now to the moderator to invite our next speaker. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shugwamu. So we move on to the next item on the looking at the solving the an introduction to that, and that will be taking William Cheung, who is here with us. Professor William Cheung, please, over to you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to thank the Temito Dennis, Hito, and all the other colleagues who are leading the West Africa case studies of the partnership project, solving the sustainability challenges at the Food-Climate-Biodiversity Nexus. I'm joining here from Vancouver in Canada, which is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam people. We are really lucky to have the opportunities to work with the amazing team in West Africa. I'm also here joined by my co-director, Professor Rashid Sumaila, who is also on the call. Today I'm going to give a brief introduction of the overall framing of the project, so that I think the West African case studies is an important component that's situated in these bigger contexts that both Temitope and Dennis has already pointed to in terms of the connections between the West African case study and the bigger challenges of food, climate, and biodiversity. I'm going to share my screen to show a few slides that would help explain the context, the challenges that we are facing in terms of food, climate, and biodiversity, and how we see our partnerships can help contribute to these bigger goals of addressing these global challenges. Can you see my screen okay? Okay, thanks. So let me do that now.
Sure.
Wait, yes, please go ahead.
We can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And the Solving-FCB, in short, which is the acronym of this project, is funded by the Social Science and Research Council of Canada under their partnership project grant. It is a 6-year partnership, and so we have 6 years to do various research engagement and also training our new generations of scholars and practitioners to address these bigger challenges. And the UBC, where Professor Rashid Sumaila and myself are situated, are the lead institute, but then we have many different other institutes that are located around the world. So our partners are saturated in 5 different continents, and they are looking at different case studies, which I'm going to talk about, as well as different methodological challenges in doing the studies needed to address this bigger challenge, as well as non-academic partners that we engage with, and they would be a lot of them are the knowledge users who would be using the outcomes generated from our research to support policy discussions, to support local actions to address these bigger challenges. And as Temitope highlighted, this is a transdisciplinary project, so that means that a lot of our research questions are co-developed with the research and knowledge users, and so that our research outcomes can fit directly into really solving practical challenges associated with food, climate, and biodiversity. And the bigger challenges that we are seeing now in the world is that the oceans are being affected by...
William.
Yes, please.
William, I see your slide is still on page 1.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now it's moving.
It's moving now. Okay, thanks.
It's moving, yeah, I see that, yeah.
Okay, thanks. And So the oceans are being affected by a myriad of threats, and one of it is climate change, which is really affecting the ocean systems. Is affecting this temperature, is with ocean warming, is leading to decreasing oxygen level, and also ocean acidifications. And all of this would affect marine life, including the fish stocks, that many of the coastal communities are dependent on it for food, for their livelihood, for their cultures, and in general for their health and well-being. At the same time, human activities that are extracting or exploiting the oceans are also affecting marine biodiversity. And that also have an impact on the ability of the oceans to deal with climate change. And so it is under this context that we are really facing a triple challenges of the oceans being affected by climate change, while there's increasing demand for it to provide food to people. But then we are also seeing a declines in biodiversity. And the decline is continuing in now as it has been since the past century. And this is illustrated, for example, that we know global fish stocks has reached its peak productions in the 1990s, which then start to decline slightly. This is a figure that is based on the data set from the Sea Around Us projects, with our close collaborators and colleagues at the University of British Columbia who led the project. They have these amazing reconstructed fisheries catch, and as well as production data from marine aquaculture. And what it's showing is that we have reached a capacity in producing fish from the oceans through wild capture fisheries. And that because of the overexploitations of many fish stocks, the capacity is also declining. And in addition to that, climate change is also affecting that capacity. So we are really at the crossroad of how we can produce seafood to meet the growing demand for food and nutrition for people. At the same time, climate change is affecting our fish stocks. So this is based on a study that we did a few years ago that looked at the global fisheries catches. So the same kind of data that I just showed, but then looking at how the species compositions has been changing since the 1970s. And particularly looking at how those changes relate to how well the different fish species are adapted to warming waters. What we find is that with the global catches, it is increasingly dominated by species that are adapted to warm waters. So those wet fish as indicated by this schematic diagram. And that changes are related to ocean warming. So it means that it is suggesting that with the oceans getting warmer, the fish stocks are increasingly dominated with those that can adapt to the warmer waters. And in the tropics, particularly if you look at the figures on the right-hand side, because it's already in the hottest part of the oceans, so what it means is that it is actually losing its diversity as the less warm adapted species are losing out with decreasing dominance in the fisheries catches. So we end up with catches that are only dominated for those that can survive in warmer waters. And the challenge is that it not only affects the species compositions, it also affects the global catches in general. And if you look at the oceans of this map, it shows our projected changes in fisheries catches from our simulation modeling under climate change. The blue color, deep blue color, shows that it's projected to have a substantial declines in fisheries catches by more than 20% by mid-century under climate change. And unfortunately, the deep colors actually overlap with those areas on land, as shown in the map that is highlighted by orange area. And the orange area, if you look at, for example, West Africa, which is full of those bird area, are those that we identified as countries where their populations are vulnerable to a decline in seafood availability to their nutritional health. It means those countries have populations that are really dependent on seafood for their nutrition, like protein and even other micronutrients such as iron, zinc, omega fatty acids, and calcium. So it's really set the challenge. And what it means is that we need to address this challenge altogether. I mean, traditionally, these challenges are addressed as a silo, but there are so many trade-offs and interactions between addressing food security issues, biodiversity and climate change that we really need to look at their interactions so that we can find equitable and sustainable ocean futures with solution options that really build on the co-benefits associated with those interventions while minimizing any trade-offs. And so that we can then look at how we can achieve different desirable and sustainable ocean futures, taking into account these three challenges and the solution options that are available to achieve it, to develop that pathway to achieve these desirable and sustainable ocean futures. So, as I said, this set the context for the partnership, and we have 30 principal investigators and collaborators, and actually more because there are more have joined since we started the partnership. So the main objective of the partnership is to develop realistic visions of desirable futures of food, climate, and biodiversity, and then build these nexus-informed pathway for transforming and transitioning to a desirable futures, and develop toolkits and procedures that can help translate and transfer this knowledge to stakeholders, right holders, and knowledge holders to find solutions for solving these problems. And as Temito and Hito and Dennis have highlighted, these our projects are structured across different case studies. West Africa is an important case studies that look at particular dimensions about sustainable fishing, livelihood in relation to IUU fishing, climate change, and pollution. And the other different case studies also highlighted other dimensions of the food, climate, and biodiversity challenges. In calendars, we work with coastal First Nations, indigenous peoples in coastal British Columbia, to look at ways to achieve seafood security and sovereignty through their treaty with the government of Canada. In China, we look at aquaculture, and particularly seaweed aquaculture, as a solution for food, climate, and biodiversity challenges. In Costa Rica, we look at land-sea interactions, looking at how nature-based solutions can address some of the challenges that are associated with intensifying farming, deteriorating aquatic water qualities, and how that affects coastal communities and the resources. In the Netherlands, we look at nature-informed and nature-inclusive scenario pathways to achieve ocean sustainability, both in the Netherlands as well as in general in the European waters. And we use different kinds of methods, from scenario building, integrated modeling, to developing decision support tools. So we also have a number of teams that really are experts, the leading experts in these different methods. Some of them are in this call. I know Laura Pereira, who is a professor in University of Wits in South Africa, is leading the scenario components. So she and her team are really helping different case studies in developing methods to use a new framework that she lead and together with other colleagues in called Nature Future Framework to illustrate these desirable and sustainable futures for the oceans. So maybe with that, so there's a co-creation of an artwork from our first meetings in Vancouver last year that really illustrate some of the core aspirations and objectives and activities of our projects. Maybe I will pass it to Professor Ashish Soumala, who may please feel free to add to this.
Yeah, so thank you very much, William, for the comprehensive overview of the project. Thank all of you for making the time to come. It's wonderful to see so many people from the region. I mean, meeting together to try to understand ocean, mainly the Gulf of Guinea. Essentially, that's what we are looking at, right? With Ghana and Nigeria as the focal countries, but the goal is to see what is happening in the Gulf of Guinea. And to me, this is really cool. And you know, the thing, just bringing us together to think beyond our borders, to think about bring people, students to work together, to study is something that is really dear to my heart, because each of us individually cannot do much, whether you're thinking in terms of discipline or in terms of region or area. The oceans are all connected. The Gulf of Guinea is all connected. What you do in Nigeria will affect what happens in other countries and vice versa. So this is the beginning, I think, or a continuation, because there are other projects. Most of you are working on different aspects of the region. Now we have one project that we're going to try to look across borders, and I think it's fantastic. Another element is that we are in 5 continents, so there's a lot of learning to do globally. So it's not only West Africa or even Africa, but linking up to the rest of the world. At the end of the day, we are one world, you know, no matter what some of us want to think that they are special or they are in this corner. At the end of the day, we are all connected, especially through the ocean, right? You've heard me say fish don't need visa, unlike people, right? They go where they go, so we have to do this kind of work more and more. Just to give you an example of this global perspective, I mean, China is really good at agriculture, the largest agriculture fishing nation in the world. 60% of global production, has got a lot of experience, both good and bad, right? So this is an opportunity for us in Africa and around the world to learn from China on the good things and to throw away the bad things, right? We don't want to duplicate. And Costa Rica and West Africa, one of the first meetings we did, they actually said, oh, you know, there's a lot of focus on gender aspects in West Africa and fisheries that they don't have at all in Costa Rica. So they're very keen. They say, well, there's something for us to learn here. So that is the way we are co-creating, we are developing things together. Everybody has good ideas from everywhere in the world. Good ideas don't come only from Harvard, okay, guys? Get to know. You can get top ideas from Lagos University, from the University of Resources, and Sunyani, wherever. There are good people, good brains everywhere. And this is the mantra we are hoping to build. Yeah, myself and all of us. Laura is doing this. You can't believe Laura is all over the world. I mean, tell me you are a global person already, and many of you here. Dennis, I don't even know what to say. He just came back from Waterloo, and they were so happy. He gave a lecture to 350 Canadian students. And at the end of it, they were clapping for him, right? You know, so we are breaking these bridges with this. So this thing is bigger than just fish, my dear people. This is about making the world open up and knowing that we all have the capacity to make our own countries and the world better, you know? Through fish, huh? Through fish. You can do it through anything. So thank you all, and I hope that this is just the beginning of great stuff for us and for the world. Thank you, William. Thanks for the comprehensive presentation of the project. So you see, I didn't say anything, but there is a lot of economics and social. I mentioned gender, right? So we have to do interdisciplinary work, link up ecology, economics, psychology, whatever, right? And Temi is big on community involvement, right? Bringing in the NGOs, bringing in the government, private sector. No one group can do this alone, right? And we have to push our governments to do the work of the people, to sustain our ocean and our nature, because we depend on them. All right. I think I should shut up now. There will be more interactions to be made. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sola, for helping us navigate through this.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Rashid Sumaila. Glad to have your perspective on partnership is key. So we want to move on to the next item, which is looking at the West African case study. So Professor Dennis Aheto, I yield the floor to you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Moderator. With your permission, I wish to share the screen.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Trying to see if I could project it. Is it that you see it in a projection mode?
Not yet.
I think so. It has
But you see the screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
We can see your slide. We see the first page.
But it's not in projection, right?
Yes. So perhaps you go to the slideshow. Just at the top,
that's what I'm.
Or at the bottom, there is a small hourglass that you could use.
Yes, the wine glass. Yeah, it's so many things on the screen.
Okay. We can do that for you from this end.
I guess let me just go off. Just do that from your end.
Okay, now
right.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. Thank you for the opportunity to present this perspective within the broader context of this FCB global approach. I must first of all acknowledge Professor William Chang, and of course, the Professor Rashid Sumaila and the entire West Africa team, co-led by myself and Temi. Temi based in Nigeria. I'm based in Ghana, of course, working with our partners in Ghana, partners and colleagues in Ghana and Nigeria. Within the context of West Africa, we are focused primarily on IUU and also issues to deal with pollution. And within the context of addressing this nexus, focused on food, climate, and biodiversity. We are collaborating within the context of 5 universities, Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, University of Cape Coast, University of Energy and Natural Resources, University of Lagos, and then, of course, Lagos State University. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So in the context of food, we're looking at seafood, particularly to do with fisheries. Within West Africa, we are aware that illegal, unreported, and undocumented fishing has been a major bane to our development. In Ghana, IUU by trawlers alone have depleted the resources, at least data that we looked at in 2017, culminating to a loss of over $50 million in Ghana alone, and of course in Nigeria over 70 million. And you can imagine that in these countries where fish constitutes a major source of animal protein, it calls for a lot of concern, not just from an economic perspective, but also from a social perspective of eventually also culminating on the impact of biodiversity. We're looking at fish in this context, not just as a source of food security, but also as a source of ecological security, because the fish is not just to support livelihood, but also contributes to the broader ecological food web system. And so that brings up a concern for the impact of IUU on biodiversity as well. You know, illegal fishing activities also has to do with the use of illegal fishing tools, use of dynamites, use of poisons, use of destructive fishing gears, more often depleting juvenile stocks, with the damaging effects of ocean benthic floor, which we all know that really destroys the marine ecosystem. In order to complement the declining stock of marine fisheries, there has been efforts in Ghana and Nigeria to go into aquaculture. We know that in Nigeria it's mostly about catfish production. In Ghana, tilapia. All these complementary efforts also leads to pollution, effects of pollution of our river bodies, our streams, our estuaries, lagoons, broader coastal and freshwater systems. And in effect, this has also led to increasing demand for bushmeat, which also impacts wildlife conservation. So there is a feedback impacts broadly, not just on marine ecosystem, but also on terrestrial systems. Amidst all this, as William has highlighted, is a growing impact of climate change on the marine systems, which have led to so many other impacts, particularly in West Africa. The impacts have been far-reaching socially, economically, and ecologically, particularly to do with the impact of upwelling systems. So we are looking at examining whether how IUU in the Gulf of Guinea could enhance the resilience. We're looking at issues that can help to enhance the resilience of not just the ecosystem, but also livelihoods. So some of the broader questions we are looking at is, how does IUU climate change pollution affect fish stocks? And to what extent does that impact on dietary diversity among artisanal fishing communities in Ghana and Nigeria? We also want to examine the effect of the use of some of these destructive fishing methods on marine ecosystem, but also on fisheries as a whole. We also intend to examine how poverty and knowledge among artisanal fishers could be harnessed, issues to address poverty and knowledge could be harnessed within the context of adaptation strategies. So there are far-reaching issues to look at. In terms of major deliverables, we are conducting a situational analysis, which provides us a baseline scope for evaluation of the issues. We also intend to engage stakeholders, which involve meetings in Ghana and Nigeria among policy makers, academia, as well as civil society institutions. We also intend to develop survey instruments for primary data collection, hopefully culminating in 2 to 3 research papers and some policy briefs. We also intend to engage in some conferences and high-level meetings with policymakers as a basis to discuss our research findings. And as has already been mentioned in the presentations, one of the key focus of the project will be to train postgraduates, undergraduate and masters particularly, to support sustainability of this initiative. Next slide, please. Yeah, so broadly speaking, we will be, as I already mentioned, we look at situational analysis to identify some of the internal and external factors in relation to the challenges and opportunities in the two countries. Our key factors will be, our key methodologies also relate to biophysical data analysis, where we look at the marine ecosystem broadly, on the fisheries, on the ecosystem. We will be also looking at physical-chemical data, particularly to do with the effect of pollution, heavy metals. We also focus on plastics and all that. And then with the socioeconomic and demographic analysis, we look at variables to do with poverty, dietary diversity, climate change strategies, and so on. All these will be looked at from a quantitative and qualitative perspective. Hello? Please, do you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Right. So this broadly points to our approach on the project. I want to thank you for the opportunity, and we welcome any questions that relate to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Dennis Ahito. So I call upon Dr. Temitope Shugbamu to continue from here.
Good morning, everyone, once again, or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I'm just going to follow up on the presentation by Professor Akpalu to talk more about what we have been able to do so far within the West Africa Case Study Project, and also to dwell just a bit on the marine pollution aspect, which is actually my own core area in addition to the IUU fishing that we're focusing on here. So within this project, like Dennis has mentioned, we are actually very big on training students. This project is a partnership project that aims, because we're focused on sustainability, to actually build the capacity and skills of the next generation while trying to address these nexus challenges at the food, climate, and biodiversity spectrum. And so since we started this project in 2022, for instance, in UNILAG as one of the partners, we've been able to train and fully sponsor one master's student in environmental toxicology and pollution management mitigation. We've also had recruited across the other partner institutions in the Lagos State University and also our collaborating institutions in Ghana, recruitment of students, but as well as project support staff to deliver the various aspects of our projects in the West Africa case study. Part of the deliverables from our situational analysis is coming up with a stakeholder map, which I will share shortly, and that will inform the next participatory workshop that we will be having next week. I'll talk about that in the next presentation. And while I'm talking about that, Laura Pereira will come up to talk to us about the building desirable future scenarios and how stakeholders are actually very important to that aspect of the project. Just to give you an idea of how the plastic pollution issue is. As we may know, Nigeria has a population of nearing 250 million, and Lagos State is our highest populated city in Nigeria. In fact, one of the 4 mega cities across Africa indeed, with about 24 million people. And amongst the various environmental stresses and challenges that we have, including climate change. By the way, Lagos is a city of aquatic splendor. So we have coastlines where we have large millions of people who live there and are vulnerable to this climate change risk and of course biodiversity decline risks amongst other populations. But we add on the issue around plastic pollution, and I'm just sharing here a study done in Nigeria and published recently, and we can see how this issue is. The problem with the plastic is that they are persistent in the environment, so they don't degrade. They take centuries, decades to degrade. And so we have problems of aesthetic pollution in terms of the macroplastic itself, as we can see here, and the greater challenge of uptake of the breakdown of these particles over time into microplastic by living organisms, fisheries in particular, and of course, how this can travel across the food chain to human beings who eat these fisheries. And specifically for the coastal communities whose livelihood depends on fisheries, it also affects their nutrition, which is the food security aspect that they are dealing with within the FCG project. And this is not just representative of Nigeria. This is what we see across Gulf of Guinea countries, some Africa countries. And so we hope to be able to address this. But like Rashid has said, we can't address it from a research alone point of view. We need to be able to co-create, first of all, that we do have those challenges across various spectrum. So we're looking at the challenges across social, economic, cultural, environmental research spectrum to be able to understand the multidimensional approaches to possibly be able to resolve this issue at the nexus of biodiversity, climate, and food security. This is further showing the variation of types of plastic that we have, and we can see uptake in some of our economic fisheries of this plastic in them. And we already know what these effects could be. I've just mentioned potential effects in humans and also potential effects in terms of sustainability of the fisheries in our aquatic ecosystem. We go off to the Gulf of Guinea in particular, the Southeastern Atlantic, and we also have these issues there in terms of microplastics, and it actually cuts across our coastlines in Lagos, and this is ditto for Ghana and some other West African countries that we have within the Gulf of Guinea. So from our stakeholder mapping, we have mapped stakeholders across fisheries, across coastal oceans, ministries, departments, and agencies of relevant governments across Ghana and Nigeria, but also within other West African countries, because even though this is focused on Ghana and Nigeria, we are very open as a partnership that we hope to continue to expand beyond the current membership. And so we're actually open to onboard as many stakeholders as possible in order to be able to resolve these challenges sustainably. This is a 6-year project, so we have a lot of time to do this. In addition, we're also particular because IUU fishing is one of our big objectives. We have mapped stakeholders across IUU-related organizations in West Africa, as well as higher institutions as well within this project. And in the next slide, I'm just going to show us what we aim to achieve with our first participatory workshop, which is coming up next week. I must say that the participatory workshop is the first that we will have within the context of this project. And here we are only dealing with, we know that the stakeholder spectrum is quite large. And so the engagement is the first of many that will come, and they will be sequential. What we hope to achieve within this first workshop, which by the way is participation is by invitation alone only. And so in this project, before the end of the meeting, we will map the stakeholders that we have here and ensure that we onboard possibly other stakeholders that we have not included in the invitations, at least in this first instance. But just to say that everyone here is an important stakeholder, and that's why we collected information from you via the Zoom registration. And so based on the information we have provided, we have opportunity to also look at other ways to engage you further in the lifetime of this project. So this participatory workshop will be in Nigeria. It's the first within the West Africa case study. And here what we're trying to do is to co-create what the challenges are. We have put forward what the challenges are based on our knowledge, literature, and our experiences across the spectrum of academia and policy. But we want to ensure that we capture those challenges across as many stakeholders as possible. So we are looking at actual communities that are impacted by these triple stressors. We would like to have them and hear from them. So beyond the participatory workshop, we are also going to have focus group discussions, key informal interviews in small groups, because we know that participating in this workshop may not be possible across, especially the informal groups and communities. So building on this first workshop, we will also be going into the communities to also glean what the challenges are at this nexus. So the first workshop will talk about sustainability challenges at the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, as well as plastic pollution nexus in the coastal and marine ecosystems in Nigeria. And what we hope to achieve in that one-day full workshop is to be able to look at various scenarios and approaches to how this pose challenges across social, environmental, economic, cultural scopes or dimensions within Nigeria in this first workshop. And I'm going to now invite Laura Pereira. She's going to introduce to us what's going to happen within this workshop as an introduction, but what we are also going to carry forward based on our outputs of this workshop into developing desirable futures for our coastal ecosystems in the Gulf of Guinea. Over to you, Laura.
Cool. Thank you so much, Temitope. And good morning, very early morning for some, good afternoon, good evening for others. It's fantastic to be on this call with you all and to meet all of these very important stakeholders. As Temitope has mentioned, you're all very core to the functioning and the ultimate success of the Solving-FCB partnership, and in particular the work that's going to be happening in West Africa. So I'm not going to give everything away because we really hope that everyone's going to actually take part in some of the workshops. And you know, this is just going to be a first one, an initial one that we have in Lagos next week. But they will, you know, based on that interaction, we'll get a sense from the participants in terms of like, what is the core area of focus? So this is the important aspect of knowledge co-production, is that we don't want to come as a project team and say, okay, these are the big science questions, we're just going to do the science, and you know, there's going to be some magical uptake in the community or in government, etc. We want to work from the very beginning with the core stakeholders, with the participants in these workshops, to actually define, well, what are the key questions that we want to ask? What are the science questions that can really help decision makers make decisions, or that can help civil society be able to activate towards the kinds of preferable futures that both William and Rashid were mentioning at the beginning, and that also Professor Dennis Aheto was acknowledging in his opening remarks. So I'm not going to give it all away, but next week we're going to have sort of our first real co-production workshop. And an aspect of that, it's not going to be the whole thing, but it's going to be focusing on this framework that William mentioned called the Nature Futures Framework, which was developed by the IPBES, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. It's quite often sort of referred to as being very similar to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, but working for biodiversity rather than for climate change. And both William and myself sat on their task force on scenarios and models, where we developed this framework, which was supposed to be used and has been used in many participatory processes with a diverse range of stakeholders with different preferences, different aspirations, different ways of seeing nature, of seeing fisheries as food, of seeing fish as part of the cultural context, of seeing artisanal fisheries as a fundamental identity for so many people, but also as a livelihood. And so we're going to use this framework to unpack these different preferences, to sort of be able to hold on to the diverse aspects of the ocean, of our coastal systems, and what they could look like in the future. So we won't go into a full visioning exercise next week, but we'll go through this initial exercise using the framework. And I have an image of it, but I think I might save it for the actual workshop to be able to share with everyone. And then based on that, we'll be able to get a sense of working with the participants, of having some rich discussions using the framework on what the next steps would be. So do we want to go through a full envisioning scenarios exercise? Do we want to think through some pathways development where we're also working with the models? Do you want to focus in on some specific case studies? So all of that will be discussed together with the participants. Using this framework. So I'm also more than happy to take any questions sort of when they arise later on and to explain this a little bit more fully. But just to emphasize that this is going to be a sort of a constant framework that's used across all of the case studies. So this will be a nice way where we can actually start to see some of the similarities, but also the differences between the different case studies. So to understand, in the West African case, this was an important aspect, but in the Costa Rican case, these were very similar, but then we also had these very different perspectives that were starting to emerge. And so the Nature Futures Framework is intended to be this overarching device or heuristic that we use to be able to tie the partnership together and it's flexible, so it can be adapted and used to whatever needs each of the case studies have. And so we will be working together with all of you to see how well we can operationalize this, and to, in particular, have a West African example, because we don't actually have one yet. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to engaging with you further.
Thank you so much for that brief insight into what we should expect in the coming weeks. And we're really sure that it's going to be an exciting engagement. Now we move on to feedback, comments, and the question sessions. So we've had several presentations this morning, several talks. So if you have questions, comments, please, you can raise a virtual hand so that we can acknowledge and take your questions or comments. Okay, so I see Rachel Ido. Can you unmute, and you can share your video also?
Good morning, all. It's just to thank you all for the opportunity of inviting us into this project of this magnitude. First of all, I want to congratulate every one of you in this team for a wonderful work you're doing and for the wonderful project. And I wish you all the best up to the finishing time, so that at least at the end of everything, you have opportunity to impact this nation and give a sustainable solution to the situation on climate change. As we know, we have the climate change is having significant impact on our marine system. And you know that fisheries is highly vulnerable to changes in weather pattern in the coastal areas of Nigeria, Ghana, and other continents. I'm really impressed about this intercontinental team, because it will have a significant contribution to livelihood, food security, and overall economic of our nation. So I want to just encourage you that at the end of everything, we should have a sustainable approach to increase fish production in the face of climatic change and impact of the negative global warming on the marine environment, and how to go about it so that at least at the end of everything through this project, every nation will be impacted and there will be joy on every side. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that comment. Professor Rashid, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I want to thank Rachel for her comments, and also if she can come back and please tell us her institution, her affiliation, and why she does, and that is also for anyone who wants to talk, because we are beginning to know each other, right? The more we do that, the better. All right, thank you. Rachel, okay. Can you come back? Rachel is...
Okay, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, along the line.
I'm sure. So,
hello.
Okay.
Sorry, can come back, please. I'm Professor Rachel Toyosido, University of Abuja. My area of specialization is hydrobiology, aquatic environment, and fish culture, aquaculture, such area. I know Temi Tokwe through question, and we have been together, we have been working together. So I was invited by her, and I found it a joy, things of joy, to attend the meeting. Thank you so much.
Oh, you see, Mr. Moderator, this is really good. Abuja is very close to Kaduna. And Rachel, this is nice. You are up in the north, in the middle there. And I'm sure you have students from the region, right, who are trying to do fishery. So this is good. Thank you. Good to know.
All right. We have Kolawole David. Please unmute and Let's have your question or comment.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. So I just want to thank you for the wonderful, seminar. It was a great one. I really learned a lot of things, and I'm happy. I'm not really going to ask a question, just like a comment, because over time, you see, we do research and get some results on things, but at the end of the day, we won't be able to pass the bill. I mean, in government area as to how we can implement it, but from one of the presentations from Dr. Temitope Shobramo, I mean, she mentioned some other organizations that have been involved, like the ministries, the NGOs. So I believe that at the end of the day, when these have been, solutions have been provided, I mean, we'll be able to implement this even from the government level, which is actually something that is inspiring. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to be part of this, I mean, this meeting, this moment. So thank you very much. I just want to appreciate everybody, the moderator, and everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kolawole David. We have a few questions that have been sent in earlier on, but before I take that, we have Edu Inam. Please unmute and go ahead and introduce yourself, from which institution, please. Edu Inam, you can unmute now. Share your video so we see your face. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure. Still have maybe network challenges. All right, so I'll take some of the questions that have come earlier, and the moderator presenters can please attend to any of the questions. The first one is that plastic pollution in the environment, especially aquatic environment, has increased greatly in recent times, and its impact on food, climate, and biodiversity is yet to be quantified. There is a need, therefore, to conduct such wide measures in. Well, this is just a comment. It's a comment. The specific question says, what is plastic pollution all about, and how can plastic pollution be eradicated? So perhaps we start from that point. Anyone who wants to?
Okay, I can take that from.
Yeah.
I can take that from the team. So when we're talking about plastic pollution, we're talking about those substances. There are substances that are released into the environment by man, and they are made up of carbon compounds and hydrogen compounds. But the challenge with plastic is that they're referred to as emerging pollutants, in the sense that when they're released into the environment, they actually don't degrade. It takes centuries and decades for them to be able to degrade over time. And they are even composed of different ones, depending on the type of plastic. You can have some that can take up to centuries, actually, to be able to degrade completely in the environment. Now, the challenge with the eradication is actually what I've just mentioned, the persistence of these substances when they're released into the environment. And the more challenge we have within Africa and West Africa is that we actually have relatively poor plastic or solid waste management systems. And so these substances find their way right from where they're released into the environment, instead of going into proper landfills or waste collection sections where they can be recycled, or where they can be where they can be turned into useful things. And that's the main problem that we have. The eradication is multidimensional, and that's why in this first workshop, we want to even understand and glean from people what their thoughts are, and if they're in sync with our own admission that plastic pollution is a major problem in addition to climate change. And so the eradication comes through research. And so those of us in academia have a very strong role in that. But policymakers and decision makers are also quite critical through policy instruments, private sectors, through policies and also frameworks within your institutions. Recently, we've had various governments across the West African countries, including Nigeria and even Lagos, implement plastic pollution management policies. One of it was actually the ban on single-use plastic, which is actually quite preponderant in our environment and, of course, gets into our coastal system. So like I said, the eradication is not something we can talk about in one place. It's something that needs to be co-created, and it needs all hands to be on deck, especially the next generation, or should I say the now generation, which are the youths, because advocacy and awareness is key, where we have evidence from research as well. I'd like to stop there and maybe have other comments and questions. Rashid.
Yeah, so I want to quickly add to your comprehensive answer, Demi. Yeah, that was good. I just want to mention that I was part of a National Academies of Sciences report, which we did for the US. And by the time we finish, I'll find the website and share, where we look at plastic pollution, ocean plastic pollution, the US contribution, but actually we took, of course, you have to look at the global also. So you will see, and we have 6 steps that we propose towards how to reduce this. Number 1, you just produce less of them. Go to the source. So we have to reduce consumption, somehow bring in alternative. You guys remember, right? When in West Africa, we wrap our food in banana leaves and corn leaves, and somehow we were convinced that that is primitive and you have to use plastic. Now, I'm actually in Cape Coast. You see all the food, kenke, which used to be wrapped beautifully in corn leaves, are now in plastic, very ugly. And they don't taste nice. The leaves make them taste special, right? So maybe we'll have to re-look at this. And universities have a big role. Do the research and show us the value of maintaining our traditional ways, which we can't argue because we don't have the science. So there are 6 steps, and one of them is what you said, Temi, about recycling and trying to deal with it, the disposal and all that. So I will share a site for this, for those who are really interested to follow up. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Dennis. Then we go
so
to
thank
Emmanuel.
you, Solade, for the opportunity. So Temi, I'll be sharing with you some of the thoughts I shared on plastics, because it was a major topic I spoke on when I went to Waterloo 2 weeks ago in 2 different public lectures about how we can advance some global solutions in terms of the growing menace on plastics, because West Africa is not exception, as you have clearly stated. You know, almost everything, as Rashid has also said, including food, and obviously goes beyond that. Non-food items are being packaged with plastic. And the problem is there is even no elaborate plan in operation, you know, to deal with the waste that are generated through plastics. And there are also no clear tax incentives for supporting the waste management efforts. So the issues are many. But I think significantly what we have to highlight here is the fact that plastics are actually a transboundary issue. You know, we generate them in Nigeria, Ghana, everywhere, but sincerely, it gets into the ocean and it moves all across the world. Of course, Asia being the number 1. If you look at the statistics, the top 10 countries across the world that generate plastic, we only have 1 country that is found in that is Egypt. So it requires some regional approach, particularly in terms of data sharing, capacity building, and more importantly, harmonizing national regulation and legislation. And for me, one of the things that I've clearly indicated also is that we need to have standard protocols for data collection so that we can compare information and data that are coming from our research. And that is why this particular project is very important, you know, in terms of advancing some approaches in dealing with the unsustainable production and consumption patterns. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dennis. Emmanuel Folagboye, please introduce yourself. You can also show your video.
Thank you very, very much. Good day, everyone. I'm Emmanuel Folagbe from Institute of Ecology and Environmental Studies of Obafemi Awolowo University in Ife. I'm also one of the applicants. This project, I really thank all those people involved. It's a huge project that will go a long way in bringing about sustainability in our society. And with the look of the things, I can see that this project has captured a lot of things from pollution, management control, climate impact as well, and as well One Health, because I can see that it encompasses not just only the aquatic environment alone, but human being, the aquatic organisms, and even the economy. And I look at it, it's not just ordinary a kind of a project that covers within just one particular country, but goes across the continent. In fact, I can see with this particular project that if this project is being executed effectively, it will help us to detect and bring about a sustainable solution to some of those problems we have as far as regards One Health, which is a major issue that we have to capture now in this present dispensation, and as well to capture the aquatic organisms. We have seen a lot of issues. Presently, I heard that the Lagos state government has banned the use of some of these plastic materials, which is a very good move. But still yet, we are still having a serious issue with this. I've heard of cases of people that have been having some health effects that are related to plastic materials because they ingest all these things, either directly or indirectly, which has covered across our food chain. So I really thank the organizers and the management of UNILAG for taking this upon themselves, and especially Dr. Mrs. Shugbamu, because she has been up and doing so. I really thank you, and I hope that I'll be part of this project to bring about a sustainable solution to our community. Thank you very much for this program. I really appreciate you.
All right, thank you so much, Emmanuel. We have a question in the Q&A section, but Dr. Oluwafemi Soyinka, do you want to read out, you want to ask your question and use that opportunity to introduce yourself? Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay.
All right, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and well, whatever time it is in your own session. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Dr.
You can share your video so we see your
sorry,
face.
I joined. Okay, I joined a bit. Okay, let me see. Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much. I hope you can see me.
Yes.
Yeah. So really, this is a very interesting session, and I really am so glad to be part of it. I appreciate the invitation I got to attend this meeting, and really, I'm in for this project. But you see, there are a number of issues I just had in mind, and I was just wondering. I'm sorry I missed a little part of at the beginning. I'm Dr. Soyinka from Department of Marine Sciences. I'm lecturing and also research in fisheries, biology, fish management. And so, you see, there are a number of issues like in the question I wrote down, I said I wish to know, because I don't know the extent to which government agencies are going to be involved in this particular project. I don't know the extent to which they are going to be involved. Because even some of the cases of this IUU, there are no reports. There are reports, of course, maybe from the monitoring agencies, and what efforts have been put in place as penalties against defaulters. The installed vessel monitoring systems on indigenous trawlers, are there no reports from there as per those who are involved in this IUU? What steps have been taken? And then foreigners who are invading our waters, who are intruding into the waters, what other efforts? So I'm seeing that this project, I don't know to what extent governments are going to be involved. I'm talking of government agencies.
in such a way that there will be a synergy of achieving the objectives of this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shoiga. We will take more questions, but before we go ahead, we need to take a poll. So we would take a short poll now, and then we'll come back to the question and answer session. So the poll is up. I'd like that you please participate in it. Yeah. There are still some hands. There are some. We'll still take more questions. If you have any questions, just please, while the poll is ongoing, you can just either put it down in the chat box, or you can take your questions. So let me take I guess that is Dr. Muhyiddin Lawal. You can introduce yourself formally and also share your video and ask your question. Okay, where's okay, he's okay, I know that Dr. Komi, you had a question. So if you're ready, you can let's have your question now.
Right, good. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. So my name is Dr. Sabakomi, as you right indicated, University of Energy and Natural Resources, Sunyani, Ghana. So is a question and also a comment. I do appreciate so well the very elaborate way the speakers or the presenters gave the information. And I'm happy about the extent that this particular project is going to cover, the intercontinental extent that we are going to enjoy. But I strongly believe, and I'm also passionate about ecosystem services. And when we're listening to the presenter on the microplastics, I also wanted to know to what extent, or to, I mean, how to what extent are we going to cover these impact of microplastic on ecosystems along the coastal lines? Now, the ecosystem survey, we are talking about the plural values, looking at the economics, the social, the relational cost of some of these impacts on the communities. To what extent are we doing these studies to cover these, and also to more or less have some kind of, I know most people may not like to hear the economic valuation of ecosystem services because they believe it doesn't have much effect. But in reality, if we're able to know the extent at which some of these microplastics are affecting the values of the ecosystem service on the dependent communities, to that extent, I think we'll be able to have full appreciation and help the community. So I want to know to what extent our study is going to cover some of these areas and to make it more relevant to the local communities in terms of their livelihood. That's what I want to. And again, my next question also is about how much are we going to involve the local communities? Because it may not, our outcome, the outcome of the study may not really impact if we do not connect so much with the local community and also make them assimilate the information, or because we're talking about climate change here, obviously that must lead to some adaptive measures. So to what extent are we going to involve these locals to understand the issues and also to help them have some adaptation measures to be able to manage and coexist with climate change effects on the coastal communities? That is what I want to put across for the panel members to comment on. Sure.
All right, thank you. Any of the panel members can respond?
Yes, I would like to request collaborators and partners from Canada and Ghana, Nigeria, to address those last two questions. I think they're quite critical. We still have some hands up, but I think it's important that we don't leave any gap as much as we can. Okay, so William and some others. Then thereafter we'll take William and Dennis, and then we'll take one more question. Can we kindly encourage you to please ensure you complete the poll? I'm sure we can already see some gaps from the poll that we're seeing. We can't see so far representation from coastal communities. So that's something for us to go back and work on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think maybe I will answer particularly using the questions as how to adapt to climate change and addressing the other issues. And I think that's something that our project is really interested in, looking at the co-benefits that we can get from different interventions or solution options to address the various challenges that has been discussed so far in this meeting. Maybe, and one of the aspects is that we want to cross-pollinate from the different case studies. So maybe I would take the example from the Canadian case studies as an example, where we are also working on similar challenges. We are also organizing workshops to look at some of the scenarios, and LOA is also participating in it as well. So in that case, one of the issue is how to it is working with the coastal First Nations, particularly with one of the First Nation Tla'amin nations, to address how climate change affects seafood availability and how that affects their nutritional security. Because I mean, the coastal First Nations really dependent on those seafood for their nutritional health, and we find that we have been doing studies with them in the last decade, and their nutritional quality and security is declining since in the last decade, and more than 50% of the populations are food insecure. And so with that context, climate change is really adding that additional stress to them. And in fact, we find that also many of the traditional knowledge that the communities used to practice have a lot of potential in helping to address these climate change challenges. So, for example, they traditionally they have been using one thing is called clam garden, which is kind of an indigenous stock enhancement methods that they build these wood walk structures along the coast to enhance the productivities of clam that also increase the availability and accessibility of those resources by the coastal communities. And clam is identified as one of the species that are more resilient to warming. And so there is that potential reviving of that traditional practice that can help as one. It won't solve the problem, but it will be contributing to positively to addressing that. Other measures such as increasing accessibility to seafood through building more processing, traditional processing of traditional seafood such as salmon, like smokehouse, that allows them to have more accessible to those resources by the border communities are also identified. So I think in some way, what I'm saying is that there are these lots of different methods that could have co-benefits, and a lot of it really worked on some of the things that we know is important already, like reviving some of the traditional practice that are important for conservation, for culture, and for food security, or addressing some of the resource management issues, such as in Africa, addressing pollutions and IUU fishing to ensure a safe and accessible seafood for coastal community. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shem. I think, Professor Dennis, do you also want to respond?
Yes, I would like to respond to the last question, I think from University of Energy and Natural Resources in Ghana. I think he wanted to find out to what extent are we going to involve the local communities. And I just want to emphasize that this was thought through at the inception of the project, because we're looking at 4 main key areas of approach. I mean, scenarios development, and you heard Laura spoke extensively about that. But then also there is integrated modeling, and then of course decision support framework that are going to be developed. But central to this is the 4th approach, which deals with the participatory involvement of local people. And you heard clearly, Temi spoke about next week having this participatory meeting in Lagos, where communities represented by civil society institutions are going to be there, academia, policymakers, all helping to co-create, the issues to make it in a way that becomes demand-driven, driven through the local communities. So that is really one of the foremost activities that are going to be done also in Ghana. But ultimately, in the delivery of the project, they would also be involved in data collection, ultimately in data analysis, and of course, when it comes to their support for policy, they will also be involved through conferences that would be organized in Ghana and in Nigeria, because these are things that we also think as a project are central in bringing the collective voices, particularly from the fishermen and the policymakers. This is not the first time this has been done. At least within Ghana, we have tried to provide these kinds of platforms through conferences that have been done. And out of these, we intend to bring out communiques, which would then be communicated to policymakers. And so that is really one of the key approaches, involvement of local communities as part of the overall 4-pronged approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dennis. I see Professor Rashid.
Yeah. So my colleagues have dealt with this. So I just wanted to add a few points. Number one, this project is classified as a partnership project by the Research Council of Canada, right? And the whole idea is really to bring researchers, policymakers, NGOs, civil society, journalists, all the parties you can think about, bring as many of them as possible to co-create solutions that actually all of them can take ownership of, and therefore it's more likely to be implemented. So the government, everybody. So you touch on something, and that's important. And Temi has actually shown a lot of interest in this and always talking about stakeholders, bringing them together. Nigeria has just got a Blue Economy Ministry, and I know that Shehu and on Temi are either connected somehow to that. So there are channels and we need to use them. So that's a very good question. The second thing is I see very interesting questions being asked by participants. And this is also one of the goals of this kind of partnership. Remember, this is just to get something started. It's almost like a seed project. Because one project cannot do it all. So you bring bright minds, like all the amazing people. I think we're about 70 people on this. We hear, we socialize each other with ideas, and then something pops in your head, right? And the thing is for each one of you to be able to take something out of it and actually develop a project. there's that thing about ecosystem valuation. I didn't take down the name of the professor who mentioned that. That is very important. And I think the team will need to think about how to do it. He says, if you actually are able to show how plastic can affect the commercial fishery, their revenue, their jobs, the food, then you get policymakers interested. And ecosystem valuation is like that. So please, all these amazing people, we hear each other, you have an idea, grab it. And if you see any proposed project, a call that you want to apply, we will collaborate to get all sorts of things going on and starting from this and, planting seeds all over that can help us really nail down things. All right. So remember, seed project is just to get it started. So we do bigger stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shugbamu?
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. I just wanted to call our attention once more that the poll is still up. It's very important as part of mapping our stakeholders to be sure that we map, or at least to see where the gaps are. Just in case you are no longer seeing the poll on your window, please, if you just click more on your taskbar, you will see the poll/quiz. Just click on that, and then you will see the poll, and you can just please click where your relevant stakeholder group is. We're sorry we missed out media here and we missed out students. So, but please, you can still see whether you fix into any of this. We'll take care of that in our post Inception meeting survey. Over to you. There's one more hand up.
Yes, we have Akorede Salam. Can you unmute and also share your screen, your video, so that we can see your face and introduce yourself? Korede Salam, you can unmute. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First off, Akorede Salam, master student in environmental. This is a very, very good program. Very impressed. Okay. I'm requesting this. So my question has always been that in the course of the science something, you could also look at the problem with the in case of marine habitat.
Can you check your microphone?
We're struggling to hear you.
Yeah.
We're struggling.
Is it better now, sir?
Very well, very well. Much better. Yes, it's better now.
Okay. So I was saying that in the marine habitat, I know for a fact that in West Africa, with small scale farming, the ecosystem services we get from the marine structure in itself is about $20 billion. That is an estimated value, which is a lot just of fishing in the marine habitat in Africa. And I know for a fact that over 46% of this fishing are done by small scale and illegal fishermen. So my question is, if we try to, if there are policies to curb this, one, is there an alternative for these farmers to fish? Because once the policies stops this activity, it means most of these people don't get access to their livelihood. So is there like an alternative, a sustainable alternative for these people to carry on their lifestyle fishing? And I know that China did something as regards to like a controlled system of farming in which they grow seaweed and all of this to encourage, in an enclosed space to encourage these fishes live their natural habitat as much as providing fishes for the population, a controlled fishing condition for the population. So can this also be replicated in Africa? That's my question. Like, this alternative for small fish farming, can we like replicate what China are doing as regards their fishing industry in Africa?
Thank you for that question. I'd like to ask Professor William Chung to kindly respond to this.
Thank you for the questions, and I think this is a really good questions, and there are lots of interest on aquaculture in addressing the challenges that we talk about, the food climate and biodiversity, and that's why we have the case studies in China to illustrate that. And in fact, there are the projects partners in already in collaborations in that our colleagues in the University of Xiamen in Professor Ling Chao is hosting the colleagues from West Africa to on their on the research visit to look into these issues. I think there are both opportunities and challenges here. So first of all, there are opportunities where we could use aquaculture to like particularly look at doing it in a sustainable, equitable, and inclusive way to address the challenges where there are species that have less footprints on the environment, particularly in terms of pollution, contributing to pollutions, as well as the demand for other marine resources such as fish feed. But those has been traditionally a big challenges of some of the existing fish farms that really have a big footprint, like salmon farms. But in contrast, some of the lower footprint farms, such as shellfish farming or seaweed farming, may be a more sustainable options in that. And that also can contribute to potentially contribute to some other aspect of the food climate and biodiversity challenges. But then at the same time, I think it should be also mindful about the needs of the coastal communities, whether that would actually, for example, there are I think the general assumption is that aquaculture can create jobs for coastal communities to help fishers for as an alternative livelihood. But then I think the questions need to look at is whether the jobs that are made available from aquaculture are also suitable for those who traditionally been fishing. So in many cases it is not, because it's really demand a different kind of skills and a different lifestyle. And then also how the protection from aquaculture can support securities locally as well as livelihood should also be looked at. So I think that there are more complexities in terms of these nexus challenges, as aquaculture certainly will be a really important solution options. But then I think this is part of the project's goal is to elucidate whether there are co-benefits, whether there are trade-off or negative consequences, and what are the appropriate way of implementing it as part of the pathway towards the desirable futures in collaborations with local stakeholders and policymakers and the communities in developing that pathway. So thank you.
Thank you for the response. I think we just have about a minute or so for one more question. Dunsin Bolaji from Neoma, you want to introduce yourself formally and perhaps also put up your video so that we can see your face.
Okay, good afternoon. I think I'm having a little challenging. Okay. Yes, I think my face is on now. Good afternoon. I want to thank the organizers of the program. I am Dr. Dunsin Bolaji, Head of Department of Fishing Technology and Safety, Nigerian Institute for Oceanography and Marine Research. It's a pleasure to be part of this program. I really appreciate the invitation that's been extended to Neoma. And we look forward to work effectively. It's just a comment with you on this program and say there are so many assumptions and misrepresentative or misrepresentation when we're talking about IU in Nigeria. So as we work together, we'll be able to see how these can be redefined. IU in Nigeria is being disseminated to people outside, so we can have a proper representation when we talk about Nigeria, when we talk about the fishing industry, when we talk about the artisanal sector. What do we define as IU? What are the things that are actually being misrepresented when we talk on a global basis? And when we have publications that are going out, there are some figures that I've also seen while we're presenting that we also need to review and actually look at it. Are they really given the correct representation of Nigerian situation? So Nigerian Institute for Oceanography will be very, very happy to go well with you to work on this so that we can have proper representation of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dunsi. Balaji, thank you. Dr. Shugbamu, a quick response.
Yes, thank you very much. And I just wanted to highlight that Dr. Dunsi was actually one of the critical stakeholders in the IUU fishing space that we engaged prior to this meeting. And he had actually informed, like he said, that Nigeria is actually now not suffering, as it were, from the issue of IUU fishing, unlike the records we had from literature, because there's been some high interventions, especially in recent times. So definitely, like you said, we hope to engage you more, and so that we actually get evidence from the different contexts and not just academia and literature alone. At this point, yeah, Rashid, I see your hands up. Okay, so can you quickly give a 30-minute response so that we can move straight to 30 seconds, I beg your pardon, so we can move straight to the virtual.
Yeah. You gave me 30 minutes. Thank you. Yeah. So
you know what I mean.
Very quickly, the Dr. Balaji. Yeah, thank you for the comment, and it's very useful. And this is an example of a government agency actually participating, right? And we need that. We need to really understand what is happening on the ground. So your point is well taken. And the thing I will add is, in general, I mean, science is very difficult to say there is just one picture, right? Because we are all learning and searching more information, there's uncertainty. So it may be quite difficult scientifically to really have one story, right? You remember Chimamanda Ngozi's TED Talk. There's just no one side to a story, right? So I'm just trying to say that we appreciate your participation. We will work together, get the best correct picture, of Nigerian situation. But at the same time, it's hard to expect that there will be just one picture. And that's the addition I want to add here. All right? We always argue. It's part of science. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rashid. And we're ready to show the results of the first poll. And thereafter, we'll take a virtual photo that we would like to use to, as part of this launch. So please kindly show your videos, everyone. And I'm hoping that we all receive the Zoom background. And so we all have a lovely, picture. And as we can see from the results of the poll, we don't have private sector here and coastal community stakeholders. So that's something that we are going to take back and ensure we work on. As a virtual photo is done, we're going to have the feedback poll come on, and then I will give the closing remarks. We want to thank you very much. I think it's been a highly interactive session. And then if we are ready, we are waiting for everyone to have their videos on now so we can take our virtual photograph. Yes, thank you very much. All right, so we will start taking our cameramen. Go ahead and take our pictures. Are you able to do that? Okay. All right. Please, can we on our videos? Well, just be sure that you have a decent background. And ensure that you please have your full name, not your device, so that we can see it when we are putting this on our FCB website.
Temi in action.
All right. So I want to just make a comment. My comment is to the project, and I see quite interesting views and quite huge potential for this project. My comment is in line with the fact that I come from a conservation background where I study birds, and I have seen while working on the lagoon here in Lagos, I have seen clusters of water birds around places where fishermen have set up their nets, and also along across the lagoon you find that even where there are no nets, there seem to be these clusters of water birds. So and quite interestingly, this project cuts across also the countries, the West African countries lie within what we call the Africa-Eurasian migratory flyway, which is quite an important stretch of coastal area for migratory birds. So I think there's a huge potential for not just addressing the fishing component, but also bringing other disciplines on board. So that's just a comment.
Thank you.
And I think that was a fantastic comment. Like Rashid and colleagues have said, this is a highly collaborative project and partnership. The onboarding of different partners goes beyond just the current members in this consortium. And on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to quickly acknowledge everyone for joining this meeting. Thank you so much for responding and participating. We also appreciate those who are not joining in Zoom, but those who are also joining us and participating via the YouTube live stream. We want to encourage you to follow the Solving-FCB social media handles on Twitter, on YouTube. Also consistently interact with the website. As you have heard, this is an actual global project. So we have various activities happening across 5 continents of the world. And so you get to see these shared on the events page and news. And we particularly want to encourage students because as you see, a lot of opportunities are rolling out across the consortium. Nigeria has just recently, we're in the process of recruiting a PhD student, and we had 96 applications from all over the world.
Oh my God.
In fact, it's amazing. We had from Sweden, we had from Zambia, we had, from Pakistan. I mean, literally all over the world. And this is the kind of capacities that and partnerships that we're actually looking for, and that this project is aimed at achieving. Even though we're only recruiting one person, one of the things we have said is that capacity building is a very strong component. So we will find other ways of engaging and onboarding those other people who may not get the position, the 95 people thereafter, and of course across the other partnership projects. We hope we got your consent, and we didn't have time to quickly do that we will share these virtual photos on our social media handles to show the broad spectrum of participants that were part of this project. And we invite you to please the final poll, just feedback from you, if we have actually delivered on our actual objective for this Inception meeting. And the poll will be launched now. And then we will also hear from us in your emails. We will also share additional information and links, especially for the participatory workshop. We see that it's likely that there are some stakeholders that we've not extended invitations to because we didn't know about you. So now that you know more about the project, we will also provide opportunity for people to be able to indicate their interests to participate in subsequent workshops and also in the incoming one next week. And just to say that these workshops are not only limited to Nigeria, it's across Ghana as well, and also possible across the other institutions in China, in Canada, and all that. So Please ensure you're following us and you ensure you get up-to-date information about where the next ship is moving to. Thank you very much once again. And perhaps we have some final remarks from our PIs for the global project and also colleagues from the West Africa case study. We end the meeting at exactly 12 noon West African time. So we have 50 seconds to go. Thank you so much.
Hey, very quickly, Temi, you make me smile when you talk. You are amazing. The whole team is wonderful. And I can only do this. Let's keep going, okay? Thank you.
No, thank you so much. I think this is a really wonderful start. I can't wait to continue to work with colleagues here and others on these case studies and the bigger projects. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Hi, Temi. Hi, Temi.
Yeah.
On behalf of the Ghana team, I just want to congratulate you and the entire Nigeria FCB team for organizing this very important meeting. We look forward to more fruitful engagements. Yeah.
Dennis,
Temi, did you hear what I said?
Yes, I did, Dennis. We are past the hour now, so we are stopping. We are actually quite hungry.
She doesn't operate by African time. She sent us an email.
Even though I'm African, I'm quite
start
English.
exactly.
Or should I say German?
You are wonderful. That's good.
Yes.
Let's keep
so if you are staying back now,
Bye-bye.
you are staying back for coffee and cocktails. We are actually officially ended the meeting. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yeah.